So when I was in college, I think that's when I've always been interested in like different techniques of storytelling. But when I was in college, I happened to take a course, a diorama making course where we each made our own little miniature dioramas, and I think that's when I officially kind of realized the potential that miniatures had for storytelling, and what an interesting medium it is to be able to tell stories with. Because with miniatures, people automatically get instantly immersed, and they get sucked into this specific world just because of the scale. So it was a kind of an interesting format for me to work in, and I've always wanted to kind of do this story where I kind of create this like parallel reality for myself and do it in miniature. So it's almost like creating a little microcosm of my own universe, and that's kind of where the kernel of the project first began. It was over a course of 8 months. I didn't work on it continuously, of course, but it came together over that period. It was also, the timeline was slightly complicated with various restrictions of the lockdown. My laser cutters and things like that were not always functioning and open, so I had to kind of wait for a lot of those processes. And so bits and pieces kind of came together over an entire course of 8 months. The design and the conceptualization and finalizing the design happened towards the end of 2019. And then I built it over the course of 2020. So the design and stuff had already been in works for about a year before that. So a lot of the furniture pieces were inspired by real pieces from brands like West Elm, Restoration Hardware, Anthropology. The rugs, like I mentioned, were all 5 of them were Jaipur rugs. Fabrics, we used several. Some are just kind of locally sourced fabrics, but a lot of the little cushions and bedding and things like that were done with fabrics from Fab India and from Via Fabrics. So it's really just a mix of several different brands that we were lucky to be able to use. So there is like a longer video that is coming out about the process of the dollhouse, the collaboration with Studio Slip and things like that, and that's like a process that's like a professional video that's being made by a cinematographer that I know. So that's coming together. That might take a little time to come together, but that will come together eventually, where that will show a little bit more about the construction process and the footage that he's been able to shoot for that. So that's not footage that I have access to right now, but it is coming. It's on the way for sure. Mostly I work by myself. I don't have a team. Occasionally what I do is I hire interns on occasion whenever I feel like I need them in order to divide my work up. Interns that I've hired have not specifically worked on this project, but the thing is, as you've seen, I work on several different types of projects, so then I tend to hire interns who would be interested to work with me, and then give them projects that align with their interests. So for example, if they're interested in animation, or if they're interested in publication design, then I kind of let them work on projects of mine that are in alignment with their interests, and be able to create something that they can then put into their own portfolios. So, and it's also more exciting for me, because that way they take better ownership of the work when they are also interested in it. If they get to produce and put together an entire, say for example, if I want one of my interns created this animated video to promote one of my graphic novel. So she was able to then kind of conceptualize and put together that entire video on her own. And now that becomes a project that she can put in her portfolio, as well as it gives me a video that I can use to promote my book. So it's kind of a win-win for me. And I don't know to what degree I can answer that specifically, since I've approached this more like an art project. But I think if I remember right, another talk that I had done along with you guys at Prabha Khaitan itself was where I think Ms. Praneet Babar, she talked about how after seeing this, she was kind of revitalized in this idea of going back to physical scale models, because now, architecture and interior design has really moved into digital renderings and visualizations and things like that. And so there is something, I would say that there is something to be said for the tangibility of a physical model where you're able to kind of see details up close. But then at the same time, it's also, I mean, when it comes to the professional industry of architecture and interior design, it can be quite a drain on resources to create this kind of model at this level of detail for every single kind of project. So it's really about where you want to invest that level of time and effort. So that was quite interesting, because I think I learned a lot about my own preferences in this process, because I think before the project I had very much more traditional tastes and preferences, but as I kept working with Studio Slip and they started showing me the various options that were possible and the various references of, oh, this could be a more European or a British style, or this could be like a more, we can incorporate more Indian influences in this design and things like that. When I started seeing the way they were putting various things and textures together, I started finding it way more exciting than my earlier, more conservative, traditional choices. And I started seeing that this could be really exciting, not just from an interior standpoint, but also I approached the project very much like an art project. So it's about what's exciting and what's dramatic and cinematic from the perspective of photographing the project, from the perspective of staging scenes in the project. And I was quite happy with how that yellow turned out. I mean, I was quite surprised myself that I ended up going in that direction. I understand where the question is coming from, because coincidentally I happen to be wearing a very bright yellow today. But no, I've never been able to answer this question about what my favorite color is, because I feel like color is such a contextual thing. It always depends on what context it is for. So when it comes to what colors I like to wear, that has a certain answer. When it comes to what colors I like to use in, say, my graphic design work, that has a different answer. So there's really no such thing. I can't really say I have a favorite color to begin with. It really depends on what it is for. Yeah, what looks good, and that's so dependent on context that, the answer keeps changing. So now that the house exists, I'm really trying to now come up with storylines and things like that I can produce across the next year, and be able to really flesh out little R's world and her story, and now that she has an environment to play in. And I am, yes, I have other non-miniature projects in the works for sure. I am also writing a book that will hopefully be done sometime early next year. So yes, a lot of different things in the works.